Hi everyone, my name is Charlie. You can still see the books from my coordinated TBR in the background, but basically I forgot that I also have another TBR planned just for this week. I'm calling it the Week of Indies. I started it yesterday, and so I just thought I would talk about the books that I'm going to be reading. I'm going to vlog this experience. We're really trying this vlogging lark. We've got such high hopes. Anyway, the first book I picked was The Space Adventures of Kirk Sandblaster, Space Adventurer by Oli Jacobs. I've read this, I've discussed it in my May wrap-up. I am currently reading Milk by Emma Rosen of Emma Rosen Books. This is subtitled A Story of Breastfeeding in a Society That's Forgotten How. Now, you might be wondering, Charlie, why are you reading a non-fiction memoir type book about breastfeeding? And basically, I really think that we should be supporting each other as indie authors and as booktubers. And I am currently 32 pages in, and I'm just going to tell you now, Emma knows how to write a yarn. So far we've had some memoir portions, we've had some non-fiction portions discussing not so much breastfeeding elements at the moment, but just discussing mammals and the like, and I'm about to enter into a chapter on the history of breastfeeding. I think that it is an important subject to tackle because there is a lot of shaming going on that we have all seen, and you know, I'm supporting an indie author whilst I learn about the history, and you know, I might not find it helpful myself, but I can always pass this book on to someone who might. I think it's really important to support indie authors. As an indie author myself, I'm aware that I don't support other indie authors as much as I should because I'm living in a saturated market and there are always books coming out that I always want to read, and sadly the traditionally published ones usually take precedent, and I think that that needs to change for me more than anyone else. I'm now 160 pages into Milk by Emma Rosen of Emma Rosen Books, and I think that this book should be read by everybody. This is not just a memoir and some non-fiction statistics. This is a book that goes into the issues that all women face as new mothers, as mothers who choose to breastfeed, and it so far has left me feeling incredibly annoyed for Emma for some of the things that she has had to experience in terms of the formula milk industry, and finding out some of the statistics of things that had happened was quite frustrating to hear about. What I'm enjoying about this book is the way that Emma isn't saying that this is the right way for everyone and that everybody should follow her story and do exactly what she did. What she's so far talked about is that as every child is individual, all of the parental decisions that are made should also be individual based and catered for that baby. At least that's what I've got from it so far. This book is written in such a fantastic manner. When I was at uni, we talked about memoir having to... You don't want a memoir to sound stilted. You want a memoir to read as good as fiction, be as compelling as fiction. I think so far that the way Emma writes is just really, really great. I don't have all the synonyms. I think that she is able to craft her prose really well. And I know that this is memoir, but there is still an element of having to make the reader want to continue reading, and she definitely has that here. I've now finished reading Milk by Emma Rosen, and I have to say, it really is the fantastic memoir, and I think it should be read by everyone. I think that it should be taught in schools. I thought it apt that Emma chose to discuss the societal implications of breastfeeding, really, and being a new mother, and how there is a certain way in which we perceive that people should parent rather than just accepting that everybody is an individual and everyone has their own way. I think that it's just who we are as a people, that oftentimes when someone's had an experience we decide to share our own experiences, but not realising just how detrimental they can be to that person. When I said that I think that everybody should read this book, it's because I think that it's sharing information and giving us a story that we never actually see perpetuated, and I think that it should be. I think that it should become more of the norm and it should be accepted more. I like how aware Emma was in this book of, rather than trying to say that this is the way everybody should go about parenting, she's just giving you her own experiences to allow you to make an informed decision in future. As a memoir, this is a fantastic, brilliant read, talking through the struggles of being a new mother and talking through the difficulties when some people are viewing you as being quite the hippie-ish mother. It educates whilst also showing the writer as having something of the steep learning curve, and I think that it's a universal story with an individual spin. So yes, I'm going to leave links to where you can purchase this book and Emma's channel in the description, so please go ahead and take a look if it at all takes your fancy, but I definitely recommend this one. I think that next I'm going to be moving on and reading Life Thinly Sliced by Patrick Prinsloo, simply because I would like a shorter read before I move on to reading Fractured Blood by Mike Tetzlaff. I only have about 100 pages left to read of this one, so I'll probably be doing the majority of my reading of this tonight, but for now I am going to go. I'm going to do some writing and I am going to watch some more booktube videos because I've been doing quite a lot of that this week, and I will check in with you possibly when I've finished reading this one. I come to you in the midst of great frustration because I recorded my next clip related to Life Thinly Sliced by Patrick Prinsloo, and when it came to editing it, I discovered that none of my sound had recorded. I don't understand quite how that works because I am recording on an iPhone, but it means we are going to have to go through all of this again. It is currently Wednesday. I finished reading Life Thinly Sliced by Patrick Prinsloo on Monday morning at midnight. It only took me 2 hours to read the entirety of this book. It is a collection of flash fictions that encapsulate the entire gamut of literature. Basically, there are dystopian stories in here, there are comedic stories in here, there are dystopian stories that are also comedic stories. There are stories of romance, there are stories about the modern political climate and discussing what could happen should we go down this same route we are currently going down. Or indeed, if everything turns up nice again. I suppose there are some utopian stories in here as well. Some of the stories are just snatches of life, which I suppose is related to the title, which is Life Thinly Sliced. It makes perfect sense now. Whilst reading this book, I finally understood what it meant for a writer to be playful in their prose. I've heard a few of these stories over time as Patrick has brought them to the writers group for criticism and critique, and there are also some available on his blog, therefore I'll leave a link to that in the description. As with any collection of this size, there are going to be some stories that I did not gel with as well as others, but I do still think that it's a superb collection, and as someone who doesn't generally read flash fiction, it's quite the experience to see just what a writer is able to do in such a short amount of time. I know there's that big thing about Hemingway and the 6-word story, but sometimes you do need a little bit more. Indeed, I believe that my favourite story in here is actually the shortest. I think flash fiction works well because it allows the reader to bring along all their preconceived notions about literature. So really, caricature and cliché really work well when a reader is reading flash fiction because there's usually a twist in the tale. And these twists are unexpected and are what can cause the reader a bit of unease and these laughable moments. And I think that finding Patrick's comedy in here really will help the reader to get to know him as a writer and just see the sorts of things that he likes to write about. If you saw my last reading vlog, then you know that I said about lending Death and the Penguin to a writer at the writers group. That was Patrick, because the writing within Death and the Penguin reminded me of Patrick. There's something sparse but humorous within the prose. As I don't tend to read flash fiction that much, this was a nice palette cleanser. I think that if you're looking to explore different genres, different styles, different mediums, then you wouldn't go wrong in reading Life Thinly Sliced. Then I read Fractured Blood by Michael Tetzlaff. Now, I did record 20 minutes worth of footage related to this book because I admitted that this book had put me in something of the quandary and had me questioning my own integrity. And that is because I don't think that this book is for me. That isn't to say that this book is a bad book. And that is where my quandary lies. Because I feel as though I ought to review it, and I ought to review it in the fashion that I would review anything, but I am close to the writer. I consider him a friend. He has been coming to the writers group for years, and I think that he has done a spectacular job with the book that he's written. I will give you a bit of background on the book. This book is set in the near future, and a woman's body is found at the start. Only this woman is actually two women spliced together. They aren't sewn together. They are sharing a body. This brings Inspector Rizzo into the story. We then move on to the story of Julia. Julia's mother died years previously, and she's currently working at this big research facility. And she ends up taking her laptop home. The laptop ends up shutting down and seems to be inhabited by a virus. This brings terrorists into the storyline, and more intrigue, more mystery, more guns. And for the first 150 pages, I was having my mind blown constantly because there was a new revelation at the end of every chapter. And when I originally recorded this clip, I said that I was finding it difficult because 150 pages in, I felt like I hadn't had time to breathe, and that I was having all of this information thrown at me. And whilst it was very easy to grasp, and whilst it was probably necessary for the story that Mike wanted to tell, I felt like I needed a breather. And then I knew that there would definitely be a lull, and there was the smallest of lulls before we gained more terrorists, more guns. Then the final third is probably what you want from this sort of science fiction religious thriller that gave me feelings of Dan Brown mixed with the prose of Elmore Leonard. It's definitely quick and pacey. I feel like that was to its detriment. And I also felt as though there were too many stories in here. And I know that there's something Dickensian about having a lot of different plot lines and a lot of different threads all coming together in the end. And as a reader, it can be interesting to try and figure out how all of these people are going to connect. There were several twists in here, but I ended up feeling like there was one twist too many. I felt like it dirtied the story somewhat. It reminded me of Orphan Black, but not in the best possible way. And so when it came to actually doing this review, I needed to look at the book with my own thoughts about what I like to see in literature. As we know, this year I have read Joe Nesbo's books, and whilst they do have twists, there is some slowing down of the pace occasionally. And I think that that was my issue. I think that if the pace had been slowed down a bit more and had given the reader more time to get to know these characters, I would have been giving this book a better review than I am. Because I think if you're a fan of the really fast-paced thrillers of, as I say, Dan Brown, James Patterson, all of that fun stuff, then you're really going to enjoy this book. I myself am not the biggest fan of those books. So I appreciate what Mike has done. This is a great feat of imagination, but personally, the book wasn't for me. However, if you want to read a science fiction thriller detective story with leanings towards the religious set in the near future, then I will leave a link in the description. Them's the books. We have The Space Adventures of Kirk Sandblaster, Space Adventurer by Oli Jacobs. We have Milk by Emma Rosen. We have Life Thinly Sliced by Patrick Prinsloo. We have Fractured Blood by Michael Tetzlaff. I will leave links to all of these books and the social media handles of the writers in the description below so that you can go and check them out. I think that it's important that we support indie authors. I think that as an indie author myself, it's only right that I show my support to other indie authors the only way I know how, which is through this channel. And I'm hoping over the next year to be able to do that more. If there are any indie authors out there that you would like me to read, then please feel free to let me know their name in the comments and I will go and I will search their works. I also recommend that if you want to know more indie authors, you go and you actually check out Todd and Dane's Indie Readalong. I will leave a link to that in the description as well. There are a lot of links today, and I'm hoping you will go and you will look at them all and you will find some more indie authors because there is some great stuff out there. And I think that oftentimes we still ascribe to the stigma that traditional publishing is the way to go. And I don't deny that there are fantastic things being traditionally published. I don't deny that the industry is brilliant, that we're all finding new ways to get our work out there and to share our work with the world. This is just my way of helping some other indie authors out, and I hope that you go out and you find an indie author that you really thoroughly enjoy. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.